Got to keep the truck rolling. So I'm introducing myself. Hi, I'm Paul Anderson. I'm the chair of the ARIN board, and I'm giving you the board report. No slides, and it will be very short. I just want to give a bit of a snapshot of what has been happening since we last saw you in April. We've been mostly dealing with routine issues. We adopted the 2 policies that Dan referred to earlier. We've been discussing a lot about and getting the election rolling. That was including getting the NOMCOM formed, getting the various voting lists, vote counters, and all that established. We also had a good discussion with staff on the system itself and what the future versions and what are some of the restrictions and policies we want to see that. Financially, we dealt with the 990. We recently passed a code of conduct for the board. We had a very lengthy discussion, much like the community, on board expansion. And we've adopted our strategic plan for next year, which is online, and I would encourage you all to read it and find your local board member if you had questions. And that's all I want to bring, because I'd like to take a little bit of time, if that's all right, to thank some, unfortunately, departing board members. We will be, I see that all the advisory council incumbents have put their name in, and that's great, but we have 3 board members that will not be returning. The first is Tim Denton, who served the board for several years, including in chair. He stepped down from the board early this year and could not make it, but I just did want to thank him for his many years of service and contributions to the board. This year we appointed Medica Kao for a 1-year term, and her term will be expiring at the end of this year, and she is unable to continue on after this year, so I just thought we would take a moment to thank her for her service to the board. She has been a valuable asset, so if I could ask you all to give her... And I would just offer her the opportunity, if she wants to take a second, either there or here, to say a few words.
Oh, I guess I have to hold it. Yeah, I wanted to just express my gratefulness, because I was quite honored to be appointed to be a board member for the year of 2017. I found it to be an extremely positive and inclusive experience. And also, I think that the new members of the board will also find it to be a very positive experience. Thank you.
Thank you. And that brings us to our final departing board member. And we've heard all kinds of stuff about nostalgia this year. You know, AOL, Instant Messenger, many of you heard today, is shutting down after many years. We heard about Archie, a blast from the past. And we are also losing Bill Woodcock, who we could measure the number of years he has served on the board, which has been many, and we have thanked him. I like to think a bit more that I think he's flown probably easily 3 million miles on behalf of ARIN over almost 2 decades. He has been a valuable asset to all, a mentor to me. He has always kept us very honest at the board for the many years, and I'd just like us to give a very warm welcome to Bill Woodcock, who is leaving us after 15 years on the board. Thank you. And with that, I would invite him, if he had any less words that he would like to say, as he so always famously says. Bill, the stage is yours. There, here.
Hold it.
You have to hold.
So, I know you guys are very used to seeing me speak extemporaneously and briefly, and I'm going to make 2 exceptions, because I wanted to get a few things across, and I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. So, first of all, I'm immensely honored that for the past 15 years you've chosen me to represent your interests in little meeting rooms around the world where people were endangering the internet, the thing that we love and work for. There are parts of this that I'm going to miss, but the most rewarding part of it by far I don't have to give up, and that's spending time with you guys. I think the other thing is that the part that I enjoyed most before coming onto the board is working on policy, and I get to return to that, so I'm looking forward to that. I know that as members, policy is what you guys see first and foremost. And by contrast, what the board does is sometimes kind of opaque. But while I've been on the board, among other things, we replaced the DoD NIC era ASCII forms with, a nice web interface. We've weathered some lawsuits that could have bankrupted us and challenges to our authority to steward resources. We went through a really difficult change of CEO, and we came out the other side of that with John, who has done an admirable job for us. We worked with our Latin American members to get LACNIC formed, and with our African members to get AFRINIC formed, and we got out of their way so that they could get on with their work. We propped up NANOG while it went through some difficult times, and we got CARIBNOG up and running. We created the Advisory Council. We started allocating IPv6 addresses and finished allocating IPv4 addresses, more or less. We switched from 16-bit ASNs to 32-bit ASNs. We DNSSEC signed the in-adder, and then for some reason we also did RPKI. You guys can explain that one to me. And we finally got the IANA oversight transition done, albeit 17 years late. And now we're entering a bit of a quiet period. And that's the best time to take stock of where we are and address some of the internal things that we've let slide while we were fighting external fires. And to me, that means two things. First, the composition of the board. I just this morning realized that those 5 times you've elected me are more times than you've elected anybody else. And that came as a surprise to me, because I'm not one of the popular kids. But that reflects the best of you. When you, the members, are at your best, you don't treat the board as a popularity contest. I want you to think really carefully about the election, this election, and the ones that follow it. The board isn't a trophy to give to buddies that you've gotten drunk with. When it's done right, it's a lot of work, and it's work that's being done for you. Elect the people you'd want working for you, not the ones you'd want to go drinking with. The people you want working for you in those little meeting rooms around the world when you can't be there to defend the internet yourself. Most of you know this already, but the reason I'm leaving the board is because in ARIN's 20-year history, we've not once elected someone to the board who wasn't a white guy. And the members have made it really clear that it's high time that that problem got solved. And that's not a problem I can help solve by remaining on the board myself. For the first time in ARIN's history, at this meeting, we're going to elect at least one board member from the full pool of the best possible candidates rather than the subset of the candidates who happen to be popular white guys. The numbers show that in the many countries that have mandated representative membership on corporate boards, the result is quantifiably better decision making. And they all wind up wondering why they didn't do it much earlier. And I think we'll look back at this moment in the same way. The second internal issue I think we can clean up is the complexity of policy. We have policies that have never been used or never will be. We have policies that are too vague and contradictory to be actionable. We have some that aren't quite in English. And we have a ton of policy related to IPv4, which just won't be as much of a priority moving forward. So I look forward to being on the floor of the next meeting in Miami, advancing policies that reduce the number of words in the NRPM rather than adding to them. Thank you all very much for 15 years of your trust.
All right, thank you very much for that, Bill, and that ends my report. So now it's stump the board time. But